There are women in this world who are not loud, not boastful, not seeking to be noticed. Yet they carry something rare, a quiet strength, a silent authority, a protection that is not seen but deeply felt. Some call it intuition, some call it luck, but those who truly understand call it divine protection. You see, when God places His hand over a woman's life, she walks through darkness untouched. She is not immune to pain, but she is immune to destruction. This speech is not about religion. It is about awareness. Because when a woman is protected by God, there are signs, and these signs are not always obvious to the eyes, but to the soul, they are crystal clear. Evil people fear what they cannot control. And a woman who is protected by the divine cannot be controlled. She doesn't need to expose anyone. Her presence exposes them. She doesn't need revenge, because what protects her, defends her. She doesn't chase closure. She has peace. This woman moves in silence, but heaven moves with her. And when evil approaches her, it finds its hands tied, because no darkness can enter where light is anchored in God. There are women who don't speak much, yet their silence is louder than the noise of the world. They walk into a space and suddenly the atmosphere shifts, not because they carry power in a worldly sense, but because they carry presence. Their energy interrupts evil without lifting a finger. A woman who is protected by God doesn't need to expose deception. Her presence alone causes it to unravel. People feel uncomfortable lying to her, not because she catches them, but because something about her makes the lie feel heavier. Her light does not argue with darkness. It simply exists. And that's enough. When she walks, it is not pride, it is peace. When she speaks, it is not opinion, it is truth wrapped in softness. She doesn't prove anything to anyone. She doesn't explain her boundaries. She doesn't force understanding, because she knows. The ones who walk in darkness cannot recognize the light, and that's not her responsibility. Her job is not to be seen by everyone. Her job is to be aligned with the one who sees everything. There are moments when this woman is tested. She faces betrayal, she meets manipulation, she encounters people who pretend well but intend harm, yet somehow she always escapes before the damage is permanent. Sometimes just in time, sometimes with no explanation. That's not coincidence, that's not good timing, that's divine protection. Evil cannot stay close to her, even when it tries. It's like water trying to hold fire. It cannot last. The ones who seek to use her, control her, or break her, they will try, but they will not succeed. Because when you are protected from above, even what was meant to destroy you ends up strengthening you. Even what was sent to drain you becomes a mirror, showing you who you are not, so you can return to who you are. She has walked through pain, yes, but she has walked through it. Not into it. She never built a home in sorrow. She let it teach her, not break her. That's why she's calm. That's why her eyes hold storms and serenity at the same time. That's why evil fears her even when she doesn't speak. She doesn't need to warn anyone. She doesn't need to fight with enemies. Because the moment someone mistreats her, things begin to shift in their world, not because she cursed them, but because he who protects her watches all things in silence. This is why such a woman cannot be manipulated for long. She may trust easily, she may forgive quickly, but she also lets go when her spirit feels disturbance. Her sensitivity is not weakness. It is her inner radar, fine-tuned by heaven. And when something or someone is not aligned with the peace God gave her, she no longer questions why. She just listens. Evil is clever. It disguises itself as charm. It masks itself in flattery. It uses the right words with the wrong intentions. But it cannot wear its mask for long around her, because the spiritual eyes see what the natural eyes cannot. And this woman, though she may not shout, confront, or threaten, carries those eyes. A woman protected by God is not untouchable because she runs. She is untouchable because He walks ahead of her. The path she walks is cleared before her feet land on it. The traps are exposed before they catch her. And the hearts of those who intend harm somehow reveal themselves without her asking. There is a difference between being intelligent and being spiritually aware. Intelligence can be tricked, but spiritual discernment sees beyond words, beyond appearances, beyond surface. A woman who is protected by God carries this gift, the quiet ability to feel what cannot be explained. She doesn't need proof. She doesn't need someone to confess. She already knows. Her spirit senses it before her mind understands it. That is not paranoia, that is protection. People often wonder why such a woman doesn't stay in toxic situations for long. Why she suddenly disconnects. Why she walks away without drama or warning. It's not because she is cold, it's because her spirit has already received the signal. This is not for you. That signal does not come from fear or trauma, it comes from alignment. She can feel when energy shifts. She knows when someone's words are saying one thing, but their presence says another. Her discernment isn't loud. It's calm, precise, and unwavering. This gift confuses deceivers because they come with masks, scripts, practice smiles, but none of those things can fool divine insight. She may play along for a while, observing in silence, but within her, truth has already been revealed. She's not searching for red flags. She sees the spirit behind the face. And when she moves away, she doesn't explain. She doesn't need to. Protection doesn't always make sense to outsiders, but it always makes peace to the soul. But this discernment is not judgment. She does not assume the worst in people. In fact, she hopes for the best. But she trusts the voice within, the one that whispers something isn't right here. And she listens. Because the last time she ignored that voice, she paid a price. She doesn't need a reason that makes sense to others. Peace is her reason. And when peace disappears, she follows the absence until she finds its cause. It is not that she never gets hurt. It's that she no longer stays where her soul feels unsafe. Her discernment allows her to detect spiritual danger before it becomes emotional damage. Others may call her overly sensitive, but she has learned sensitivity is a survival tool for the soul. And while others may walk blindfolded through relationships, jobs, and friendships, she walks with eyes open, guided by something higher than logic. People who try to deceive her feel something strange around her. They can't manipulate her emotions like they expected. Their usual tactics don't work. They feel seen, exposed, not by her words, but by her knowing. She doesn't attack. She doesn't accuse, but their mask becomes uncomfortable in her presence. Because when someone is walking in alignment with God, they become a mirror. And mirrors reveal what people try to hide. She does not search for evil. She simply stays close to truth. And truth always repels what is false. It's why people with hidden motives eventually fall away from her life, not because she pushes them, but because they cannot remain where their spirit is exposed. Deceivers are drawn to light, but they cannot survive in it. And she carries light. This discernment is not something she boasts about. It is something she honors. It humbles her, because she knows it is not her doing, it is grace. A gift to protect her heart, her future and her peace. And with every wrong person she walks away from, with every manipulation she escapes, she becomes more sensitive to that guidance and more obedient to it. There is a certain rhythm in the life of a woman protected by God, a divine timing that unfolds in ways no human plan could ever replicate. To the outside world it might look like coincidence, but those who observe closely will see that her life is covered in moments that seem almost too perfect, too precise, as if someone invisible is orchestrating every step, every delay, every detour. And in truth, someone is. She may not always understand what is happening while she is in the storm. There are days she questions everything, why things ended, why certain people left, why opportunities slipped through her fingers. But eventually the pattern reveals itself. What she thought was a loss was protection. What she believed was rejection was redirection. And what she didn't receive was what she was never meant to carry. This woman has come to realize something powerful. Not everything denied is a punishment. Sometimes it's mercy. Sometimes the door doesn't open because what's behind it would poison her peace. Sometimes the person disappears because they were wearing a mask too heavy to hold, and sometimes she's delayed, not because she's failing, but because the path ahead isn't ready for her yet. She doesn't always get what she wants when she wants it, but what she does get is right. It lasts, it aligns, and it fits her spirit. This is what divine timing feels like. It's not about speed, it's about sequence. It's about trust. Trust that even when things seem to be falling apart, they are actually falling into place. When others rush, she slows down. When others panic, she becomes still. Not because she has all the answers, but because she has learned to surrender to the one who does. Her life is not about control anymore. It's about flow. And when you are protected by God, the flow carries you exactly where you need to be. Even if it doesn't make sense right away, she starts to notice it more as she grows. How she just happens to be in the right place at the right time. How she meets the right person exactly when she needed them. How the truth comes out without her searching for it. How people reveal their intentions without confrontation. These are not accidents. This is divine choreography. There are situations she never entered because she was delayed by 5 minutes, and in that 5 minutes, disaster was avoided. There are messages she didn't send because something in her told her to wait. And in the waiting, clarity came. She has stopped calling these things lucky. She knows better now. This is how protection works. Not loudly, not dramatically, but with precision, with grace. Others may not understand why she is so calm when everything looks uncertain. But they don't hear what she hears. She hears the voice that says, "Be still, I am working." She hears the silence that speaks louder than noise. And she has learned to wait, not passively, but faithfully, because when she waits, she wins. This timing, this protection does not come from her strength, it comes from her surrender. And the more she releases control, the more she receives direction. life stops being random. Her steps become ordered. Her delays become divine. Her no becomes sacred. There will be moments when she looks back and sees the full picture, and in those moments she smiles, not because everything went her way, but because she sees clearly now nothing that left her was meant to stay, nothing that stayed was meant to harm. And everything that happened, even the hard parts, served a higher purpose. There is something deeply sacred about a woman who no longer forces connections, no longer begs for acceptance, and no longer chases people who drain her spirit. When a woman is protected by God, the relationships in her life begin to reflect the alignment in her soul. She doesn't attract everyone, but she attracts the right ones. She doesn't repel everyone, but she naturally distances herself from those who carry hidden intention. It's not about judgment, it's about vibration. And when your spirit is guarded by the divine, the wrong energy simply cannot stay close for long. She used to wonder why certain people walked away, why they suddenly changed, why their interest faded the moment she began to honor her worth. But now she understands. Her spirit became too loud for their shadow. When a woman begins to walk in her truth, those who live in deception feel uncomfortable around her. They cannot manipulate what is no longer seeking approval. They cannot control what is no longer craving validation. And they cannot fake connection with someone who sees through illusion. She doesn't need to call out every betrayal or false friend. Her peace does it for her. The moment someone's energy becomes harmful, her life begins to adjust. Conversations fade, the connection weakens. She doesn't need to fight or argue. That is the power of divine filtration. What is not for her begins to fall away naturally. But it's not just about who leaves, it's also about who arrives. When a woman is protected by God, the people she meets often carry purpose. They speak life into her. They recognize her value without needing to compete. They don't take from her, they pour into her. These are not perfect people, but they are aligned. They are part of her healing, her growth, and her journey. And she begins to see a pattern. The more she honors herself, the more she's honored by others. The more she sets boundaries, the more she's respected. The more she lets go of what's fake, the more she makes room for what's real. This isn't magic, it's spiritual order. When your soul becomes a safe space, only those who carry peace will be able to enter it. There are moments she cannot explain. A person she barely knew turns out to be a divine helper. A conversation that seemed ordinary becomes life-changing. A stranger speaks words she needed to hear. These are not accidents. These are alignments. When God protects you, He also connects you with those who will not destroy your spirit, but elevate it. She doesn't need to chase attention. What is meant for her finds her. What is true feels effortless. And even when it's hard, it's honest. The people in her life don't flatter her ego. They feed her soul. They are not perfect mirrors, but they reflect the light she gives. That is a sign of protection, to be surrounded by what nourishes you, not what drains you. Even the losses begin to feel like blessings, because she now knows not everyone who leaves her life was meant to stay, and not everyone who stays deserves a place in her heart. She has learned to trust the movement. When someone exits her life, she doesn't panic, she pauses, she listens. And often she realizes that her absence created space for something or someone better aligned with her purpose. There is a kind of peace that cannot be disturbed by circumstances. A stillness that remains untouched even when the world shakes. A woman protected by God carries this kind of peace. It is not the absence of problems, nor is it the denial of pain. It is a deep-rooted calm that comes from knowing she is held by something greater than herself. She has storms inside her history, yet she walks as if the sky above her is always clear. That is not delusion, that is spiritual grounding. People often wonder how she stays so composed when others would fall apart, how she smiles even after betrayal, how she continues to trust love and hope after being disappointed. It is not that she hasn't been broken. It's that her peace is not built on external things. Her peace comes from within, and more importantly, from above. The chaos outside can knock on her door, but it cannot come in unless she opens it, and she has learned to guard that door. She no longer reacts to everything. Not every insult needs a reply. Not every attack deserves attention. She understands now that some things are sent to steal her calm, not to teach her a lesson. And anything that threatens her inner stillness is not worth entertaining. Her energy is precious, and she has stopped spending it on things that do not feed her soul. That is how she keeps her peace, by choosing it again and again, no matter the noise around her. There are moments when the weight of life tries to return, when disappointment knocks, when fear whispers, when uncertainty rises. But even in those moments, she pauses, she breathes, she prays, and then she continues. Not because she feels strong, but because she knows she is not walking alone. Her peace is her evidence that God is with her, even when nothing else makes sense. This kind of peace cannot be faked. It's not a smile for the world while collapsing in private. It's the quiet knowing that everything has its season, and even this pain, this confusion, this delay will pass. It's the realization that peace is not the reward at the end of the storm. Peace is the posture you choose during the storm. People try to provoke her, test her, or manipulate her emotions, but they find it hard. Not because she's numb, but because she's anchored. She doesn't need to prove herself. She doesn't need to defend her worth. The calm she carries is her response. The silence she chooses is her strength. She has nothing to prove and everything to protect, especially her peace. There were times in her past when she gave too much of herself, when she poured out until she was empty, when she allowed others to disturb her balance. But now, she has learned the cost of losing peace, and it is a price she refuses to pay again. She no longer sacrifices her well-being for the comfort of others. That is not selfishness. That is self-preservation under divine guidance. The world is loud. People are restless. But she has become a sanctuary in the chaos. Others feel calm around her, even if they don't know why. That's because peace is contagious when it's real. She doesn't just carry peace, she becomes it. And in doing so, she creates a boundary that no evil can cross. She no longer chases, not people, not validation, not moments that aren't meant for her. A woman protected by God moves differently. She flows. Like water in a river, she trusts the current. She understands now that what is for her will never need to be forced. She no longer runs after what leaves, and she doesn't cling to what doesn't stay. Her life is no longer built on desperation. It is built on discernment. And because of that, blessings begin to follow her. There was a time when she tried to control everything. She tried to plan every detail, fix every broken piece, hold on to what she should have released. But that version of her is gone. That version was tired, wounded, unsure. Now she has grown. Now she has seen too much to doubt that divine timing is real. She no longer moves from fear, she moves from trust. She has seen doors open without knocking. She has watched people walk into her life just when she stopped looking. And she has received things she didn't ask for, but deeply needed. That's what happens when you stop chasing and start aligning. She wakes up with a quiet confidence now, not loud, not boastful, but steady. She doesn't need to prove herself. She doesn't rush to explain her worth. She simply walks in it. And the right people, the right opportunities, the right answers, they find her, not because she's lucky, but because she's aligned. That alignment comes from choosing to follow God's pace, not the world's pressure. The world says, hurry, compete, be seen. But her spirit says, be still, trust, be faithful. It confuses some people. They wonder how she's so calm when nothing seems figured out. But what they don't see is the invisible covering over her life. She's not lazy. She's surrendered. She's not passive. She's wise. She moves when it's time to move. She lets go when it's time to release. And in that obedience, blessings come. They come without chaos, without manipulation, without pretending to be someone she's not. She's no longer impressed by attention. She values intention. She's no longer swayed by promises. She looks for consistency. She doesn't run after people who give her mixed signals. Her spirit is too clear for confusion now. She has learned to let people show who they are without trying to change them. And if they can't walk with her in peace, she lets them walk away in silence. That is her power. That is her freedom. And in this freedom, blessings feel different. They are not loud or flashy. They come softly. But they fit perfectly. The job that gives her peace, not just a paycheck. The relationship that brings safety, not just passion. The friends that speak life into her, not just gossip. These are the blessings that follow a woman who no longer chases. A woman who trusts. Even in the waiting, she is not anxious. She understands that delays are often divine. She knows that what God builds lasts, and what is rushed usually breaks. So she doesn't force, she flows. She doesn't beg, she believes. And in this spiritual posture, her life becomes a magnet for goodness. She isn't without struggle, but she's never without guidance. She isn't without questions, but she's always surrounded by answers revealed in time. Because when a woman stops chasing things and starts chasing purpose, everything that aligns with that purpose begins to chase her. Remember this, a woman covered by God does not fear betrayal, because she is never unguarded. She does not need to see the full path, because she trusts the one who walks before her. When storms come, she may tremble, but she will not fall. When people deceive, she may cry, but she will not be destroyed, because she is not walking alone. She is not protected by luck. She is protected by purpose. And no evil, no enemy can touch what God has sealed.